I
I
am,
think
but
we're
not.
on.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh,
We're all here. Yes. Okay. So the idea today is, yesterday we had a marvelous, really, really wonderful hour talking about chamber groups that have been together for a long time. I mean, we had Arnold Steinhardt of the Guarneri Quartet and uh, Gene Drucker of the Emerson Quartet, and Sharon and I of the KLR trio, and we're talking
Steve
people
Tenenbaum.
and Steve from the Orion Quartet. Anyway, we're talking about people who have been together for decades. So now we wanted to talk about what is it like when you're in an ad hoc chamber group, and we've all done that. We've all been, we've been doing that for years. And what are the pros and cons, and what makes it interesting, what makes it frustrating, and all that. I always well, I don't want to be the one to start. Ida, you're the new gal on the block. Why don't you start?
oh my goodness. Well, let's see. I think that because I view chamber music as a sort of extension of my training and my learning, I welcome playing with new people because I feel that I can get some input, fresh input, um, musically, to think about things that maybe I hadn't considered. So I feel like if you have the right attitude for chamber music, which is to learn from your colleagues, it's just like being in school again, just new ways to do things. So I do feel like that part for me is wonderful, and it's fun to play, of course, but it's especially fun to learn.
It's good. Pam, how about you?
Well, let's think. Well, because I'm interested in psychology, and I think psychology is a huge part of playing music of any sort. I love to try to figure out what is going to bring out the best in somebody else. Now, that's not to say that you wouldn't do that in a regular group, but I think you have to do it probably sooner, more efficiently with people that you don't know. So I think I enjoy trying to figure out what makes people tick and what's going to bring out their best. And that has to do with making people feel comfortable as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, and also to listen much more than to talk.
That's very good piece of advice. But there are ad hoc groups, and then there are ad hoc groups. I mean, you're thinking Marlboro Music Festival, where you rehearse for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then perform something, or you could be, at a music festival where there's just one day of rehearsal or 2 days of rehearsal, and people are not knowing each other and not really getting to know each other. That's a different kind of performance altogether, and different kind of rehearsing too. I think you have to go in with different expectations, right?
Well, I think we can that's very good. And I think we should all get into that a lot, into detail. Kurt, what about you? What are your feelings about it?
Well, a lot of it is really getting to know people. For me, it's just I tend to be a loner sometimes. Just living in New York, I was kind of like didn't hang out very much with people, but getting to go out there and meet new people and experience chamber music differently each time. It keeps you from getting jaded, I guess you could say, or feeling like you're stuck in a routine. And I love that fact. It's always interesting. And what both Pam and Ida were talking about in terms of constantly learning, really seeing a different perspective. I think that's such an important thing for everyone to go through for a period of their musical education, for sure. Um, and lastly, I think it's
it's just so much fun because every time you play the same piece, it's different. I think that's the most fun thing for me is, I mean, how many times can I play the trout? It's like, it's fishy one year, it's fishy the other year, you know, but it's always fun.
Well, the thing is, I remember, this is going back many, many, many years before Sharon and I started our trio with Joseph Kallichstein. I think the reason we started this trio was because we were both very used to doing things very quickly, always. That whatever chamber music experience we had was, or our concerts, I mean, it was always, you know, a couple of days rehearsal, sometimes only one day rehearsal, and everything had to get done very quickly. And sometimes it could be wonderful and exhilarating and have fantastic results and all that. But then there was always a side to it that was very frustrating because you felt like you were just, you know, like you were just not really getting into the piece, not into the music. It was just a question of, okay, let's just see if we can just stay together and end together, you know. And so that was, I think that was what motivated us. We kept always saying, wouldn't it be great to be in a situation where you could really, really work on a piece and to perform it many times and always go back to it and talk about it and try different things and all that. That any of you guys feel anything like that?
Well, the
Yeah.
performing, you learn more from performing practice than practicing almost. I mean, you could, it's sort of a not a great generalization, but you do really do learn a lot when you get up on stage and play. So it is a pleasure to be able to play great works many, many times. You know, and if you have colleagues that will explore with you and try different things, there's really nothing better.
Yeah, I mean, I've been frustrated by short order cooking, like you described, you know, because you're just trying to get the basics in order, and there's sort of a desire to go more in depth, obviously. But that can have problems too. I mean, with not the ideal people, you can go into great depth and then have a sense that there is the right way to play something. And of course, we all know that there is no right way to play anything. So I can see pros and cons to both. The idea of more exploration is very appealing, but sometimes I become afraid of thinking that there's really only one way to do something, and I know that that's not true. And so I prefer the short order cooking just because I think it forces me to be much more flexible and to realize that there's so many ways of skinning the same cat, and the best performances are always the one where people adjust to each other.
Do you guys
But
feel like
this,
that it's good to have either one or two rehearsals or like 8 or 10? And in between, it's like, is this, you start opening the can of worms, and then there's not really that time to get it, you know. If you're doing 4 rehearsals, then you're sort of in the midst of really getting down deep into a piece, and maybe haven't completed the process yet. But if you're forced to do it in just a couple of rehearsals, there's something very appealing about that.
absolutely, I agree completely. But you know, Pam, what you were saying about uh, that can happen if you're in a group that's been together for 40 years. You know,
Right.
it's always a new experience, and every performance is new. And
So
at
then
least
the real
at least
answer depends on the people then in for both situations.
Absolutely. You want to surround yourself with people better than you are, and people that are fun to be with, and have a joyous sense of making music, not, that it's a chore of any type. That's a drag.
Right. Yeah,
Well, you know, we've all been in the situations, I know that, where we've been engaged to do something, we've had to put a performance together, and sometimes there is not great chemistry in the group, and that's a very hard thing to do. And uh, fortunately, I've gotten to an age where I can just have the luxury of saying, "Well, I ain't going to do that anymore."
That's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing about being old. It's I
Yeah,
love and
right.
I have a DNP I have a DNP list. And I
really?
oh
Wow,
yeah.
that's
Oh yeah.
cool.
Someday when you and I are having a drink or something, I'll let you know who it is. But I there are people I will not play with.
Interesting.
Not that
Okay.
but
Okay.
a few it's just because it's just not worth it to me.
Life's short. Life's too short.
Yeah. I mean, if I was 30 or, 25 or even 40, that's different. But no, not anymore. I don't need it.
Interesting. I love the idea of going back and playing with people that I had strife with. I wish I could. Some of them. I know they'll never play with me. Sometimes that's for sure.
I
I'd be curious. Oh, and it's a lot of times it was just that people were so rigid, and I think it was like that. There was such rigidity, and then coming back thinking about it, they came into the rehearsal, like the first rehearsal, very rigid and were unwilling to change or hear anything other than what they were wanting to do. And get, trying to move them away from that was like the main goal of the group almost. I found that interesting, and it wasted a lot of time.
Mhm.
It
do
really
I
you
was.
find,
Yeah, go ahead, Pam.
sorry, no, I was just going to say that the number of people that you have fantastic chemistry with is very small. And so I would say that, I mean, that of course should be cherished and nurtured and savored, but that reality is probably the other group of people. And so for me, I actually like the challenge of trying to make a dysfunctional group functional. Because it helps me just as a human being to figure out what are the right words, what's the right attitude, and I mean, for me, the thing is to just never make it personal. Like if you make sure that you never make it personal and just it's about the music,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that always helps.
Aren't there some people though that you have several rehearsals with and they agree to do certain things and you agree to do certain things and then you get out on stage and everything is gone and it's every man for himself.
Oh yeah.
And those are the kind of people that's like, really? Okay, play with somebody else.
Yes, well, those are the people you don't play with again.
That's right. That's true.
But a lot of people don't have that choice or that luxury, right? I mean, either because of age or because of stature or whatever. And I I see it sort of as like, Brussels sprouts, like it's good for you to be able to make something work. Um, and the question is how, and you have to be a human thesaurus and you have to be an armchair shrink. And because the thing is for me is that you can always hear it. You can always hear it in the performance if there's either a power play or a disagreement or whatever. And I just feel like that's so unfair to the poor composer. It's like, it's not his fault you guys don't get along, so the piece will suffer, so I sort of enjoy the challenge of how to make the piece still as great as it was written in spite of all the personal stuff. I sort of enjoy it. It's good for me.
And
It's
you're
an
very
interesting
good at
question
it.
that Frank posed in the chat.
I do.
Are perhaps string quartet piano trios better served by permanent groups and with the right combination of artists, works of larger or mixed instrumentation better for ad hoc groups? I don't think I'd say, well, you guys have played the triple a lot of times, right?
Hmm.
Isn't it a pleasure to play the Beethoven triple with a real trio?
Oh yeah.
You know, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you have to be a soloist, but you also have to listen and know each other and play together. There's nothing worse than a triple that, three people get up there and show off. So in that way, I think it's great to have a, a permanent group. But I think not as much as string quartets. I mean, that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing. String quartets, it takes such blend and such listening, and the same bow strokes and the same vibrato and bow speed. It's just string quartets really have their work cut out for them, and it's hard for an ad hoc group to do that.
Well, this is why I have never ever played. I've had a lot of chamber music series in different places, like in the Y in New York and so on. And I've never programmed a string quartet that I would play in, because that's crazy. I always feel that's only for, oh my God.
It's hiding string quartet for you to rehearse.
Right.
It's not Frank. We know that.
Anyway, it's no, that a string quartet is totally different from a trio or a piano quartet or anything like that. First of all, I find one thing very interesting. The minute you get a piano in a group, it changes everything, and it everything becomes, frankly, much easier. Like, I think it's easier to play trios than it is to play string quartets. And a string quartet can work if you're not a member. I'm saying if you're not a member of an established group. A string quartet can work if you're in a place like, let's say, a summer festival, like Marlborough or Aspen or whatever, where if you decide to spend 6 or 7 weeks, the same people working on the same piece, that it can work. But putting a string quartet together in a couple of rehearsals, just to me, that doesn't work.
I'm just going to play devil's advocate, though, because can it work with the right people, even with a time constraint? I mean, does it come down to chemistry again? I mean, we're not talking about like late Beethoven, which requires a lot of time, but can chemistry outweigh the time constraint?
It did when you and I played the Sibelius quartet together.
I was thinking of the dream team. So for those of you who don't know, Ida and Peter Wiley and Steve Tenenbaum and I we've called ourselves the dream team. It was like a couple decades ago already, but we used to play quartets on not a lot of time.
Haydn quartet that I didn't know before you brought it to our attention. I mean, those were magical experiences.
So well, Ida, we had the same experience with you, Sharon and I and Steve and you playing the Smetana quartet in your festival in Vail. I remember that.
That was really fun.
And that was fun. That was fun.
Well, there's an example of what Pam said, which is the chemistry and the respect and the love for each other really then takes you a long way.
Yeah, and these were 4 very close friends.
Yeah.
That really helps, doesn't it? Yeah.
Oh yes.
Makes a big difference. But it is and it's a big musical family. It is that family setting in a way where you can say what you want in front of each other and not take it personally, and get over any bumps too that matters, so that you can play again. So nice. Can I ask a question? I'm very curious. Say if when you're playing in an ad hoc group where there's an odd instrument or like a bass or something else that comes into the mix, how does that affect how you approach ensemble or somebody that's not used to playing in an ensemble?
Odd.
It feels odd.
Why should that affect it at all? I mean, it doesn't matter what the group is. It doesn't matter if it's trombone, and violin.
But
it doesn't matter.
A new personality coming into any group, say a Guarneri quartet, I'm sure was very different when Ida was playing with them than when they were all just 4 guys. It's just her energy, her, you know, her magical everything. That would change the whole complexion of the rehearsal, I think. And it often does. I know when in our trio, when we have a guest like Michael Tree, I mean, it just changes everything.
Everything. Yeah.
It really does, for the better.
That's great.
You know, it's interesting. I'm going back now to Ida, when you brought up the idea of the Beethoven triple. Isn't it nice to play that as a trio who that plays together? There's so many people that think that the Beethoven triple is a very inferior piece, that it's not great Beethoven. And there's only one reason for that. It's because there are so many terrible performances of it. Because so often, three people who have never had anything to do with each other are engaged to play this piece. You know, it's usually three famous soloists, and a lot of the times they don't mix. One has nothing to do with the other, and the end result is, yes, it's always a terrible performance.
Or
So
Ida, remember the time we got to play Brahms double with Jaime
I
conducting?
was just thinking about that.
It
Of
was
course,
so fun.
we did the Brahms double, Sharon and I, with Jaime conducting, and of course, you guys are so used to playing that together with another person conducting. That was a blast. That may have been the same summer because I remember that was Vale.
it
But
was.
What?
It was that was with the Detroit Symphony.
uh-huh,
Yes,
yeah,
it was the same summer.
really
Yeah,
fun, really
yeah.
fun.
But I'm going to advocate for chemistry again, because I've never been in a piano trio, but I've been involved in some very good, I thought, or at least enjoyable Beethoven triples. What they sounded like, I don't know. But again, if you have the right people, it can be great. So I actually learned
Oh,
the
of
Beethoven,
course.
you know, so I don't want people to think that they can't play the piece. I just don't want to scare people into thinking they can't play quartets or trios or, you know, like, I'm just playing devil's advocate again. But I remember that I first heard that piece with you guys and my father.
Yes, I remember that.
So that was
You,
my experience with that
you
piece.
were
And
a little pisher then.
yes, I was
That
12 or
that was
whatever.
out in San Diego,
I was
right?
in San Diego Symphony. I remember that so well. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And it
Yes.
neither occurred to me that it was an inferior piece, nor that there was any, you know, personal.
But Pam, is a totally different story. I mean, I'm talking about people who know each other. We didn't play in a trio together. You're right. It was not a professional group, but we knew each other, and we knew each other's way of making music, and
Right. But
it was wonderful.
And
that's
we
what I'm
actually rehearsed quite a bit before we performed it.
right. But I guess what I'm saying again is that chemistry can take care of a lot of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. By the way, before we go any further, I would love to encourage any of the participants. Please, please don't be shy. And if you have any questions to any of us about everything that we're talking about, please just pipe in, okay? Don't be shy. So, okay, continue.
I mean, that's all I was sort of done. But I'm just interested, like, you know, either in permanent groups or in groups that have married people in them. You know,
Are you talking to us?
Yes, yes, I am. Because Sharon
I
said,
think
well, Sharon, you said something interesting. You said when there's the addition of an odd instrument or, you know, an extra person, it improves the situation. So can you elaborate on that? Is that because there's a couple in the group, or just because it's a long-standing group, or both?
I just think that when an established group is so used to rehearsing a certain way, and then there's a fresh new way of looking at things, a fresh new way of just new energy that comes in. And I know when you, Pam, were playing with the Guarneri, the Pameri, I mean, that must have been so fun for everybody because it was totally new energy, new chemistry.
Right.
But I'm not sure so much that it's because Jamie and I are married. Ida, do you get that with Steve?
I think there's a certain, I mean, we know each other so well musically, that that's sort of what we defer to, or go with, in a
Mm-hmm.
rehearsal or a concert. I just have to be careful not to I have to address him like I would address somebody else.
A
And
colleague.
sometimes that's, yeah, another colleague. So that sometimes is challenging, that if I'm playing with him and with Peter, with my piano quartet, you know, we know each other really well, so we can be very frank, but I still have to, I think, be a little bit aware that, sure, we're married, but right then I have to talk to him like a colleague.
Mm-hmm.
See, Sharon, did you hear that?
Oh boy.
Thing.
Oh boy. Well, I'll see you guys.
Rachel and I don't play really together at all because I get bruised a bit
Uh-oh.
too much. I tend
No,
to pay.
I must say, I don't think. Well, all of you guys have played with Sharon and me, in a group. That's not a problem ever, is it? You never feel that.
I like being in a group where you can just say what you mean, and that you don't have to add a lot of sentences of, asking, complimenting that person's mother, or just you're out of tune. I
Yeah.
like
Well, I love it. No, I love it because for those of you who have not played in a group with Sharon and Jamie, I mean, it's so to the point. It's so blunt, and it saves a lot of time. But to be totally frank, sometimes if I'm sitting, well, because I do sit between Jamie and Sharon, there have been occasions where person says something to the other one says to me, "Did you hear that?" And I'm like a mediator,
jeez.
but it's fantastic.
Well, I know in our trio, Yossi he's great at making a joke when we start, getting a little bit too scrappy.
Good.
Yep.
Can I ask one more question about for those of you who have started festivals that bring people together? Do you have any advice for young musicians going forward as far as starting something fresh, starting in a place that doesn't necessarily have chamber music, bringing people together to perform?
Mm.
Don't bring people that are not good people. There are enough great musicians that are great people.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you don't need to bring, I mean, I learned from my 35 years of running music from Angel Fire and 10 years of running Veil, you don't need to bring somebody that's not a team player. So there are people, maybe that's the DNI, do not invite list.
The DNI list.
But I've had that where, there was one instance where this person put their own personal solo flyers on every seat in
I
the
was
concert.
I
Were
was
you
there.
there for that?
Oh yes, I was.
We're not saying who it is, but you were there. I forgot you were there.
I thought Ida might have to be institutionalized from the level of rage that ensued.
Ron Thomas I do remember Ron was warming up backstage, and I came in and I threw a chair across the room, and he just played. He just he didn't even make a face or anything. He was like completely. But yeah, that person was never going to come back.
Well, we had that situation a little bit like that when we invited somebody who we had sort of been pressured into inviting to Hudson Valley Chamber Music Circle. Many people in the audience and board and wanted this person to come. And that person came in and was just picking on one of the players the whole time in their few days of rehearsal. It was, I will never forget how awful that was the whole time. And the audience didn't know. They thought it was a great concert, but it was just awful. Just awful, right, Jamie?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question from Aaron.
Hi.
Yes, Aaron. Hi.
Hi, quick question. I'm a wind player here. Sorry to infiltrate, but
You're a wonderful flutist.
oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I have a quick question. So I love listening to string music, and sometimes I like try to play transcriptions of things here and there. And to me, as a flutist, sometimes it feels like the sense of breath is like essential to the silences and gaps between the music. And oftentimes when I'm listening to even just audio recordings of Dover or Escher Quartet or Emerson, I hear breathing in between, and that's not something that I'm, traditionally visualizing as part of a string quartet's musical approach. So I'm wondering what you guys might have to say as to the role of breathing in a string ensemble.
So important. And the person who founded NISOS, Sasha Schneider, oh my God, the upbeat breaths he would take. I mean, it was unbelievable. And that was a great cue. It was somebody with a great breath. And it's so important. I didn't want to hog that, but Sasha should be mentioned in this for sure.
Definitely. It's a good question. And it's a good answer. Yeah, definitely. So are you 100% Armenian or half, or what's your story?
Yeah, I'm Armenian. I grew up in Los Angeles where there's a lot of Armenians. So
Oh gosh, my favorite restaurants in Glendale. Oh my
oh,
God.
I'm right from Glendale, so right around there.
Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, I miss being there. Did you know Moses Pogosian while you were there?
I'm a good friend of his kids actually.
Oh, nice.
Hey,
Well, Cara goes to Curtis, so I know her, and of course I've worked with. Well, anyway, I just wanted to say hello.
Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Padev.
And Aaron, bravo again for your playing. It's beautiful. Just
Thank you.
beautiful.
I've actually one more thing about that. One of my favorite recordings has one of my mentors grunting when he's playing the cello in recordings.
Don Pogo?
And Big Dave. And
Dave Sawyer.
yep. And those are some of my favorite recordings ever. And I don't mind it at all because he's putting everything into it. And sometimes the microphones are very close. And that's okay. And it's human and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So.
I was just going to add to Aaron that Aaron, if you're still there, if you're playing with string players and they're not breathing, either physically or in the music, please make them do so, because it's good for all of us to breathe, and sometimes people forget. So I would encourage you to be the breathing champion in a group.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Looking around at these names, I don't know a lot of people.
Yes, Maeve. Go ahead, Maeve. Where are you? There you are. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here and sharing about your experiences. I was wondering if you think, I guess, how you would advise students to balance staying in a longer term group, so in one group for several years in school, versus emphasizing like playing with as many people as possible.
Go ahead, Sharon.
There are pros and cons to all of this. If you find chemistry, if you have good chemistry and you find a group that works great, oh my gosh, cherish that, because that comes along very infrequently anywhere, in school, out of school. I know that several great string quartets have formed in school, Juilliard, Curtis, CIM, wherever. And when you find a group that works, please stick with it. But it's always great to have outside influences too. Besides that, is at your school, do they allow you to be in more than one group? Yes. Oh, great. Well, I would be in probably be loyal to the group that's fantastic, and then also you can play around a little bit.
I remember a million years ago when the Tokyo String Quartet was formed at Juilliard, and I knew them very, very well, and I had worked with them a lot, and they were very regretful of the fact that their chamber music experience was only amongst themselves. They didn't have a chance to play with other people. So I think what Sharon said is really, really true. If you have a wonderful group, yes, wonderful, stay together and play together, but make a point out of playing with other people also. I think there's another question, Hank.
I'd love to add one more thing to that.
Sure.
Just that, you want to bring as much information to your group, your permanent group, as possible. And the more you play with other individuals, the more you will have to bring to the table.
Very good point.
Good. Hank, where are you? There you
Hi,
are.
I'm right here. Hello. So I have a question also. As a wind player, I play the clarinet, and so obviously, there's so much great string repertoire, and there's a lot of great wind repertoire as well. And I have had experiences before where, I've always been a little bit unsure about how to ask, like a preformed quartet, like, hey, will you do like the Mozart quintet with me or something like that? Because there's a lot of great repertoire for, the crossover as well. But I just didn't know if you guys had any advice as to how to approach that specifically when sometimes it feels like, winds and strings are always, separate, being able to come together and do something like that and it not feel so much like, hey, I want to do this and I need you guys to do it. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, I feel terrible that you feel like that.
No.
That's terrible, Hank. Oh my God. Some of the greatest music ever written is for strings and winds. Think of the Schubert Octet and the Beethoven Septet and the Brahms Clarinet Quintet and the Mozart Clarinet Quintet and so on. And I could go on all day. And you should have no qualms about it. You should go up to people and say, hey, would you like to play this piece? And go for it. That's all I can say. Go for it.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
That you can convince them how great the music is and how you're just dying to play it. Ask the people that will feel the same way about it as you, and not the people that you feel like you're asking a favor. Some of my favorite people that I worked with at Curtis were clarinetists, and I remember the guys that the Rob Pattersons and and even Anthony, when he was in school. Those were the people that sought out the string players. Let's play this, let's play that. And I remember I played the Brahms quintet I was playing viola with Rob on his senior recital. He was really, and it was so nice to see a wind player be so into playing with strings.
I was just going to add that nobody should be afraid of asking anybody anything, because everybody's free to say no. And chances are, whoever says no to you, you don't want to play with them anyway. So you don't really risk anything by asking.
You can always entice them with a nice home cooked meal, or going out for a picnic somewhere or whatever. I think it doesn't have to be all work and no play. It needs to I think the social interaction is part of it. A big part, a big delicious part of it.
Absolutely. And I think there is that fear sometimes of asking people, because you don't want to be turned down, and that's something that you don't have to be afraid of whatsoever. You want to play with the best people possible always. Ask anyone that you think would actually really help you musically to move ahead. That's very important. And sometimes people are afraid of asking because they don't have a paid thing that you can offer to people. I understand that. don't be afraid with that either. One thing I think is very important for all young musicians is to set something up, put together a concert, get the venue first. Second, get the musicians, because you have the venue. Hey, let's play a concert here. And then third, get financial support. And it's weird to say financial support third, but for young musicians, I think that's a good way to go. Because once you have the venue and the musicians, guess what? Then you can get the money. It's easier to get the money. Something to think about.
We have another question from Logan May.
Yes, hello.
There you are. Hi.
Uh-oh, bass player.
I just have to ask, how does like the vibe of a chamber group change when you include a bass player? So like sound, texture, artistry wise, just like the whole energy of a group. If you've ever played, I'm sure you've all played with bass players.
Well,
I love
Sharon doesn't know
working
any
with
bass
bass
players.
players.
Yeah, I think my wife, Sharon, you answer that one.
There is just, I think I have bass envy because they can play so low and so deep and so rich. Every once in a while, my brother will let me play one of those your low string. Oh my God, it just vibrates through your whole body. I love playing with bass. It's a total joy, and it makes the cello a different instrument totally. You know, I'm not having to be the big bass of the holding up stuff. I get to be more a baritone or a tenor instrument, and maybe that's where my talents lie. But it's always, I think, so much great music was written with bass. The chamber music repertoire is fantastic.
Can I just add one thing?
By the way,
for
you bass players, we just discovered. Well, we didn't discover it. It's been around, but
we're pretty
it's
slow.
New to us. Vaughan Williams Quintet.
It's great.
That's beautiful. What a beautiful piece. Oh my gosh. What a beautiful piece.
Sorry, Pam, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to, in addition to the musical advantages, you know, of having the bass line and the richness and all of that, I have found that there's always a vibe advantage to having a bass player in the group, which is that I don't know one uptight bass player. And so for me, the addition of a bass just adds a level of relaxation, and which is healthy for a group. I mean, you know, us high pitched string players, you know, we need a little more low frequency, you know, chill. You bass players are chill. And so I love the addition of a bass just for that reason.
And I have learned so much. I mean, playing with Julius all those years, oh my gosh, I learned an awful.
That's Julius Levine.
He taught me an awful lot playing with my brother Hal. I just I've gotten to work with some great bass players, and I'm very lucky.
And Alvin Brim. Boy,
Yep.
I learned a lot from Alvin.
Yep, he played beautifully.
What a great, yeah.
I have to tell you guys a little something now. Sometimes as a conductor, when you come to an orchestra that you've never worked with before, the toughest people it's always the bass section. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So I've discovered something. I let it be known before the first rehearsal that Hal Robinson is my brother-in-law, and I got it made. I got it made.
That's awesome.
Nobody's gonna mess with you.
Right. They're so nice to me right from the beginning.
I adore Hal. He is so great. You know, we serve on the faculty council together, and he is so brilliant and so to the point and so empathetic. I'm a big fan of Hal's, of course of his playing too. But he's got a head up there.
And he's a fabulous teacher.
Yes, he is.
He loves it. So dedicated.
Yes.
We had
any more questions?
Go ahead, Logan.
We had a few rep classes at Juilliard with Hal in the beginning of the semester, and they were I was on Mahler 1 and Key J, and it was amazing.
Oh,
Well, thank you all for your answers, though. I really appreciate it.
well, thank
Not
you.
at all.
Thanks
Not
again.
at all. Not at all. So how have you guys thought about this whole experiment, this virtual NISOs? Kurt, you're here from, my God, you're from my very first year you're here.
Yes, and I you know, it's so interesting this year. I think back to that first year with you. That was incredible for me. Nothing has been better for me than NISOS. I'm not just saying that, but it means so much to me. And actually, to have it happen this year and not skip a year, and to be able to even see all of you and have this discussion, I feel like I'm learning a lot still. I always learn something every year. And it's great for me as a teacher. It's great for me as a performer to hear all this information and what the
Pam
students
and
do.
Ida, you should know that Kurt, I think you're the only one who he did Sasha's last year and my first year. Those were the 2
Wow.
years that he did.
It was incredible.
Wow.
And I played with and Pam, your father played the trout with me in a coaching, and I was just like,
Oh.
okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Seriously, that changed my mind. He changed my mind.
I thought it was awesome that you and Peter Lloyd invited Larry Hurst to be a part of the whole coaching part with the what a great gift to the students, to the young artists, and also to Larry.
He's my hero.
Yeah,
he
great.
Really is. Yeah.
He and his wife were so great to both Jamie and me in our years at IU. Really,
he's a wonderful man.
Really true blue.
Yeah.
And you know, it's true that for many years, some years it was really hard not to have an all Larry Hurst bass section, and we had to actually think about that, you know, because hey, you know, it doesn't look good, but it's pretty amazing. It's really quite amazing.
He's worldly musician.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, even though I'm anti-technology like you are, Jamie, I think this is fantastic. I mean, of course it's not the same as being in person, but it's so close. I mean, I feel the same energy, and I feel the same warmth and the same camaraderie and the same wanting to share as we do when we normally do this. I mean, so I feel lucky that we can do this in this way at all. And I thank you for making it happen.
Well, so it's Rohana.
Wait a minute. There's only one person to thank, and that's Rohana. She did this whole thing. I mean, it's unbelievable, actually. It really is.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I was able to go to some of the coachings of some of the panelists and seminars, and it was beautiful the way everyone was sharing, and with such heart, and just like Sasha would have liked it and Jamie liked it, you know, with warmth and never berating, but always encouraging and always trying to find a way to make it better in a human way. It was very nice.
Sasha never berated, right?
Right.
I remember, Kurt, you'll appreciate this. I remember my very first year.
Yes.
And you were there. And do you remember Rosemary?
Yes.
Rosemary Russell.
I loved Rosemary.
Who was the Rohana
yes.
those days. And we at the end of the first rehearsal, Rosemary came up to me. She said, I don't believe this. You finished the rehearsal and nobody's crying. Nobody's come up to me in tears.
All right. That's right. It was very different. Oh, She was amazing. She really was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think time to wrap it up. This was wonderful. Thank you guys for being here and for being so great. And let's all hope next year we can do this in person. Yes. Yes.
We will.
It was great
Okay.
being great to
Anyway,
be.
we'll see y'all soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Merry
Love-
Christmas.
Thank you so much.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.